Hi guys, welcome to the video. Today we're going to explore the usability of a Range Rover in a city centre, and especially a Range Rover L322. And at the end of the video I'm going to share with you the miles per gallon I've achieved with a 4.4 litre V8 diesel around the city centre of Brighton. Because SUVs have all grown over the years. However, this SUV is 12 years old and hasn't put on any weight since. The latest models have. This car is about 2.2 metres wide, 5 metres long and 1.6 metres tall. And to give you a comparison to what that means today in the current lineup of Range Rovers, this is only marginally bigger than a Range Rover Velar. The Range Rover Sport is bigger, and the full-size Range Rover is also bigger again. And the challenges with that, parking spaces, especially in the UK, haven't grown. This is even more of a problem in a town centre or a city centre, because parking is at a premium and you can't always get a space. So the bigger your car, the less choice you have of where you can park. So should we be comparing the size of this car to a Range Rover Velar, not the newest Range Rover that's out? If we look at price, this car I'm in now, you can now get earlier editions of this for less than £5,000. And good examples are still less than £20,000 for a very good low mileage example. And a Range Rover Velar is from about £55,000 to £75,000. And while still capable off-road, it is really designed for the company car driver that normally drives a 5 Series BMW. And that is the target market for the Velar. But would you actually be better off buying a Range Rover L322 instead? Because it's got all the characteristics and features of the full-size Range Rover, but the size of a more compact car. I'm just going to be driving into Brighton, which is a busy city centre on the south coast of England, and I'll reset my miles per gallon on this car to see what we actually get as a true reading. See how efficient a 4.4 litre diesel is in an urban environment. I'll put on screen the L322's fuel efficiency official figures from the different model years that there have been, to see whether you think that the age and engine type that you would choose in an L322, to see whether you think it would be suitable for you in a city environment. And of course, a Range Rover Velar is going to be slightly more efficient. It's more modern technology, it's a lighter, smaller car. Also, driving these cars in a city centre can come with another set of problems, which only an ultra-low emission car would get around. So if I take my Range Rover L322 into London, for instance, into the centre, I have two charges. I have a congestion charge of £12.50 and an ultra-low emission zone charge of £15. So to take this car into London would cost me for one day, just to use the roads, £27.50. Now I know there is a discount on some of those fees if you are a resident, but it is, I believe, only a discount. It's not free. Do those costs make it impossible to own one of these Range Rovers in London? Well, I don't know, because if you owned one of these rather than a Velar, potentially you've saved £50,000 on the purchase price. And that would actually enable me to drive this car 200 times into London just to cover that. So if you're not going in all that often, or if you live in central London but don't drive very often, then perhaps it is a good option for you. Save the money on the purchase price, because that Velar at 50, 60, 70,000 pounds, the minute you drive off the forecourt, would have lost in depreciation about the same as the cost of the entire car I'm sitting in. Because the value of this car is only really equal to the VAT, the sales tax, on a brand new Velar. On the subject of taxes and charges, like ULEZ and congestion charge, there is also something else to consider with this car, because its road fund licence, our annual car tax in this country, is about £735, which is a large chunk of money. and used to be used, your road fund licence used to be used to maintain the roads. but it's now just a tax. So in actual fact, running an older car with chunkier tyres and slightly smaller wheels is actually helping the government, because they don't need to repair the roads as often. But they're penalising a 12-year-old Range Rover with a £700 plus road fund licence each year. And I know a number of people have commented in my videos saying they have given up their Range Rover L322 because they weren't prepared to part with £700 in car tax. Which I sort of understand, because especially as this car gets older and cheaper, you know, £700, you're starting to get to 10% of the value of the car, or 15% of the value of the car. And then is it actually worth it? Which is a real shame. And is that's what's going to happen? They're going to tax old cars off the road because people haven't got the money to maintain them, because they're having to pay the road tax. And being a 4x4 in a city centre can be really handy, especially one set up like this. It has a few good features. It is a 4x4 and the city centres are generally full of potholes and curbs, and both of those things you can navigate with ease with something like this car. And the other features this car has that come in really handy in a city centre is access height. So the car lowers for you to be able to get in and out of it, and for loading. And for anyone that likes shopping, that comes in really handy to load the boot up with all those shopping bags. So actually it's quite a practical car around a city. Visibility is very good as well, so I can see over the top of the cars in front of me to see why the traffic has stopped, to see the traffic lights ahead, to see whether they're going to turn green anytime soon. It makes it very easy, its boxy shape, to one, see all the corners of the car. I know the bonnet ends about there because it goes straight down, and the same with the back. But to help you out, it does have surround cameras. I've got cameras down the side, around the back and out the front, and that makes parking this thing an absolute doddle. And of course it actually fits in a space because it is that little bit smaller than the new full-size Range Rover. So I'm now in pretty heavy traffic in Brighton, so I'm just going to reset my miles per gallon. It was quoting 29.2, and I've done a real mixture of driving of country roads, city centre and a bit of dual carriageway driving. That's not a bad MPG from a 12-year-old 4.4 litre diesel, I don't think. But let's see for the next couple of miles in this city centre how many miles per gallon I can actually achieve. One thing, if you are city driving a lot and not getting out on the open road, is whether you have a petrol or a diesel, because there are DPF filters, diesel particle filters, in the exhaust these days, and they clog up and they require declogging by taking it to the dealership, or normally you can run it at 50 to 70 miles an hour for about 15 minutes non-stop, so on a motorway or a dual carriageway, and it will clear itself. It gets hot enough to burn off the particles that have collected in it, and that's to make the environment in a city cleaner to breathe. But you do have to bear that in mind. If you're going to be buying one and only doing city driving, you are much better off buying a petrol rather than a diesel. Now we'll be heading out of the city centre itself in a minute, and I'll just share with you now I've got 15.5 miles per gallon, and I have been sat in quite a lot of stationary traffic. That's not too bad. When I was moving at 20 miles an hour, I was getting as much as 17 to the gallon, but at the moment we haven't achieved that. We are at 15.5. But I think for a car that weighs 2.5 tons and has a 4.4 litre diesel engine in it, a V8 no less, I don't think that's too bad. I mean, it's not 30 or 40 miles per gallon, which would be lovely. But Brighton is relatively hilly. I'm going up quite a steep hill now, and it is all 20-mile-an-hour zones. And I do wonder the difference in MPG if I could just maintain 30 rather than 20, just from the fact that you've got up to 30 and then you can ease off. It's almost easier to keep the car rolling once it's going, but at 20 it's got to get going all the time. So I'm not entirely sure it's the best move for cities to be doing 20-mile-an-hour zones. There must be some science behind it. So I think if you do want the benefits of a full-size Range Rover without the expense of a Range Rover Velar or a brand new full-size Range Rover, then I think as long as you don't have a city that you visit on a regular basis with these congestion charges and ultra low emission zones that add an additional tax to your driving, then I think the L322 could be an ideal city car as well as something for the countryside. I know which car I'd rather choose out of a Range Rover Velar or this Range Rover L322, and it would be this car because it offers so much more practicality, so much more hands-on. I think it beats a Range Rover Velar hands down. And if you do need it to go into a city centre or a town centre and park in those car parking spaces, or you're not very good at parking, which I know some people aren't very confident drivers and therefore find it difficult to get big cars into small spaces, then maybe consider a slightly older Range Rover, because it gives you all the benefits of owning a Range Rover at a fraction of the cost. Consider what size of Range Rover you want, and I think you'll always come back to the Range Rover L322 is the pinnacle of Range Rover. And on that note, I'd like to thank you for watching. Please like this video, share it with a friend if you've enjoyed it. Please do comment below. I try and respond to every single comment I get. Hit the bell notification button to get notified when the new video comes out. All that leaves me to say is thank you for everyone that has liked, subscribed and followed the channel so far. It is all very much appreciated. And I hope you've enjoyed this video, and until next time, from beautiful sunny Sussex on the south coast of England, cheerio.